What's up? Welcome back to the lab.
We are in the lab.
I got my friend here. Introduce yourself, bro.
What's up, everyone? My name is Brandon Fortino. IG is at Brandon.Fortino. And thanks for inviting me.
No, man. Thanks for coming down. I love seeing all the young bucks coming in now into the real estate game, you know?
We are.
Just making that money.
We're making the moves.
Before we started, I was sharing with you one of my theories.
For sure.
So, what's scary about this theory, I've been actually dealing with this for 20 years. I think I told you I started looking at it actually in the year 2000.
Oh, 2000.
Yeah.
That's when I was born.
Yeah. So think about that.
Yeah.
This is how long this very slow moving theory I've had. I've told my friends this over the years.
Uh-huh.
And as I started watching the real estate cycle happen, coming from Northern California to San Diego, seeing that price point difference, I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. And then over time, seeing how not just being in as an investor or as a owner of real estate, investor of real estate, the different mindsets that people go through and how that mindset is mass psychosis. Mass psychosis, and it's groups of people that think of the same way of thinking, right? And when you're in that mass psychosis, you don't really recognize what's happening because you're in the same boiling pot of water. And so over time, especially when rates came down in 2020, started to see who was buying property, why they were buying property, what was moving. And then as prices continued to increase, how the migration pattern continued to move. And it was so reminiscent of what I saw back in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now, as it happens, we're having a very similar situation. And I'm starting to see the same pattern. Loan programs, no doc loans, bank statement loans, no ratio loans, loans with prepayment options. All that's all coming back again. It's all rolling back again. And what it is, I was telling you earlier, it's called a melt up.
A melt up. What is that?
Okay. So you're familiar with a meltdown.
I heard about the term meltdown,
A meltdown is basically a collapse.
Right.
Right? It's just a collapse in the intrinsic value of something.
Okay.
Right? So you can be invested in stock. Everybody pulls their money out of stock. Last man holding the bag is the one that loses.
Right.
It's a meltdown. Complete meltdown. A melt up is similar in a sense where FOMO is really the driver. So the fear of missing out. We've seen real estate going up, 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 and up. And because it's gotten so high and the musical chairs keep cutting back, less chairs, people fighting the game pushes it higher and higher.
The prices.
Yeah. It keeps pushing it higher and higher and higher, which is not a good thing because eventually when people come to their senses and you have a meltdown is much more violent. The reason why it's more violent. So, in basic economics, supply and demand drives all basic economics. Scarcity drives demand higher. So, since we had lower interest rates, what that started to do was really allow people to buy bigger homes and have a much, much more affordable payment. The problem with that is now you incentivize any future home buyer to not want to move because they can't afford the payment on the new place. They couldn't even afford the payment on the place they're currently living in the current market conditions. Think about that.
Like, why would they even want to move?
They wouldn't even want to move.
It doesn't make sense. It's not.
Case in point, in my neighborhood, one of my neighbors just sold a house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, same size house as mine, about 1,700 square feet. In 2020, houses were probably going about 1.2, 1.3 million. Give or take, in that neighborhood that I live in. Rates were 3%. I'm a veteran. I could have got it 2%, 2.25%.
Right, with the VA.
Yeah. So they were getting it at 3.5%. That same house right now with 20% down, so $300 plus $1,000 down, $350 with closing and everything. The monthly payment is about $9,200 to $9,400 a month.
Wow.
And that's after putting 20%. And that's just a 3-2.
Yeah.
So think about that,
That's crazy.
right?
Yeah.
So their payment is essentially almost 2.5 times what my payment would be
That's insane. Yeah.
in a 2-year window.
Wow. Just 2 years.
People don't buy price, they buy payment. But when you have a melt up, they buy it based on its price and disregard the payment. Fundamentals went out the window.
Right. People don't actually take the time to actually figure that out.
Right. Because why? Why would you think that?
Because scared of missing out.
Scared of missing out. But have you ever heard the thing, past performance does not guarantee future results?
Yep.
Okay. And what they're looking at from past performance was that rates would eventually come back down.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about it. Go ahead and buy that house right now because rates are at an all-time high, and it's okay because in a year or two from now, you can refinance and take that $9,000 a month payment, and then be like $5,500 a month.
It'll go down.
It'll go down
Yeah.
based on past performance.
Right.
But that past performance put us in this condition to begin with.
In the first place. Yeah.
To the first place. And without looking at macroeconomics and understanding why the prices got pushed up to begin with. So one of the things before we started our talk this morning or today was about migration patterns and how migration patterns play a huge thing. If migration patterns play the biggest part, because that's what forces supply and the demand. Remember, the demand is one thing, the supply is another.
Right.
So during COVID in San Diego is a great example. It was beautiful, sunny San Diego. It was inexpensive, cheapest coastal community in all of California. So when COVID happens, you get locked down in places like San Francisco, the Bay Area, San Jose, Northern California, other areas that are very strict, Los Angeles. And they come now visit in San Diego and they're like, wait a minute, it's super cheap here. And you guys aren't like locked down and it's sunny and it's beautiful.
Comparatively.
Yeah. Comparatively, where they're coming from.
Right.
Us here, like, dude, it's expensive. Right. So then they take the sale of the house in San Jose or sale of the house in San Francisco for a couple $1 million, come down here, put a significant amount of down payment and live the good life. Because relatively speaking, the prices here were cheaper than over there.
Mm-hmm.
But where you have to make sure you understand something is the affordability index. The average person living in San Diego can't afford San Diego. And they're competing with people that are migrating from a much more expensive community to San Diego.
San Diego.
Right? It's all relative. Then people from San Diego markets start to push out, go to Temecula, go to these outlying market areas, bedroom communities, looking for the affordability. Mm-hmm. Or they migrate out. Texas, Arizona, Las Vegas, East Coast. A lot of people moving to like the Midwest, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois, all those more inexpensive areas.
Right.
So they take their equity here and migrate out. So you got migration coming north to south, from south out. Okay. But again, this is musical chairs.
Right.
What happens when the migration stops?
I don't know. What would happen?
It's like a hot potato. Whoever's left holding the bag.
So in this scenario, who's going to be left holding the bag?
Whoever's bought a house in the last 2 years.
The one with the highest interest rates. Is that what you mean?
The one with the highest interest rates, highest price point. See, because the thing is that if you're under the assumption, especially when you were doing those 2-1 arms, my wife and I just had this discussion. 2-1 arms was such a fallacy.
What is that? Explain to that.
So a 2-1 arm, basically what it is, it's an old loan type that allows somebody to afford a home in the short run. And what it essentially does is there's a couple different options. You have a 2-1, you have a 3-1 option or a 1-1 option. But what it is, let's say your interest rate's 6%. And the 2-1 allows you to be 2% below your start rate the first year. So you would start at 4. Then the next year you would go to 5. And then the next year you would go to 6, back to normal. And when the market was getting soft in the beginning of last year, the seller had to contribute towards that 2-1. So it was a method for them to still maintain that price point, but giving it back in the form of a credit. So now you're financing a couple years of interest into your loan balance, but it artificially kept prices higher. So instead of just reducing the price by 3%,
they don't want to do that.
They took the equity intrinsic equity, and basically financed a cheaper payment for the low run. and then you're sold. Hey, don't worry about it, bro. Rates are up. Right now it's 4%. Next year it's 5%. When it goes to 6%, we'll refinance you because by then rates will come back down.
Right.
What are rates today? 7.5.
Yeah. Almost 8.
So now you're stuck. You can't refinance out of it.
Right.
That's number one. Okay.
Yeah.
Number two, the D's. All the D's start happening.
What is that?
So you have death, still continues.
Mm-hmm.
Divorce,
Mm-hmm.
decline in income, debt, downsizing.
True.
Okay. People still die. So when somebody dies and it goes to probate and you have 5 people fighting over to sell the house, are they trying to sell the house for the most highest price, or is time more important for them?
Right.
Time.
Probably.
Because the house is typically going to be empty. They need to divvy it up. They want to get their funds and they want to be out of the market.
Right.
Sometimes you get situations where somebody wants to really get the most they can for that price.
Mm.
But majority of the times they're just going to want to try and just sell it as is. It's a fixer. Get it out from under us. All 5 brothers and sisters get the money. We walk away. We're cool.
Right.
Okay. But in a interest rising environment like we have today,
Mm-hmm.
debt starts kicking in. I can't tell you how much I've seen credit card debts go up when I'm looking at applications right now. Mm-hmm. People I refinanced 2-3 years ago have another 40,000, 50,000 in debt, not inclusive of like student loan debt, which is kicking in September. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So now you have debt on top of that monthly payment, because now inflation, you got to supplement that inflation with what? With more debt.
More debt, yeah.
What's the number one reason people get in divorce?
Financial issues.
Financial issues.
Yeah.
So now you combine, you max out your credit cards, times are difficult, getting hard, and the next step is divorce. In the last 90 days, I can't tell you how many clients I have now where they're cashing out, trying to pay off the ex-wife or split the property or buying out the ex-wife because of divorces. So one of the easiest things to give up on a melt up versus the previous cycle. The previous cycle, we had a lot of inventory. When that inventory flooded the market, you had less buyers than you had from selling side.
Yeah, from
so
buyer.
Less buyers. So the seller wants to sell, they got to reduce the price to attract a potential buyer.
Right.
Makes sense.
Makes
Pretty
sense.
simple. When you have this artificial inflated equity,
Artificial keyword.
Artificial, because it's all mindset. It's only worth what people are willing to pay
It's
for
like hype.
it.
You know what I mean?
It's
like
hype.
It's almost hype.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't say Bitcoin. How about more like a Dogecoin?
I was about to say, yeah, it's hype.
It's just hype. So that hype inflates it up.
It's the price up, yeah.
So, but again, past performance doesn't lead future results, right? So now you got this hype where the prices are up, but if you're in a distressed sale, do you really care that much about your equity? Not when you hate your ex-wife or you hate your ex-husband, right?
Trying to get things done.
Trying to get things done.
Good to go. You know?
That's right.
Yeah.
So you can sell a house for, let's say, $720, but you know what? $675, we're out. She's cool. I'm cool. I leave the house as is. I'm not touching shit.
Yeah.
I got to pay off my credit card bills, bro, and I can barely afford the rent of my condo.
Right.
Like literally, that's like, I hear this all the time.
Damn.
So that's what we're starting to roll into. So if you start taking away the mass migration from Northern California to Southern California, which right now, if San Francisco is coming down by 10%, 9.5%, San Jose is coming down, Sacramento is coming down, Los Angeles is starting to level out and come down. What do you think is going to eventually happen for San Diego if that migration of wealth isn't coming here anymore?
It just kind of stops. Yeah.
It's going to level out.
It's like whoever's holding
You won't
the bag.
see it come down based on the unit transaction, because right now we have the least amount of homes on the market that I can even recall. I think normal typical market, we're anywhere between 6,000 to 8,000 was homes that we had on the market. There was times we cut close to about 9,000 homes, and that was like a 90-day supply. Now we're down to like 2,300 homes.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But when you have a high demand of buyers for a very limited number of homes, again, back to supply and demand,
Right.
there was too many applicants for too few of homes. And the smart money is the first one where they start saying, do I really want to do this? Because a lot of this stuff that happens comes from the wealth effect. So the wealth effect is when individuals feel very comfortable on their living standards, they start doing a little YOLO. One of the canaries in the coal mines for real estate is real estate coaching. Because if realtors aren't doing the same amount of transactions, because there's few transactions to go around, what's the first thing they're going to want to do when the market starts to shift?
Cut costs.
They're going to start cutting costs.
Yeah.
Who's the first people that start cutting costs?
Coaches. Yeah.
They start cutting the coaches, and they start cutting marketing dollars.